Sorry guys, I'm just gonna start this video again. From my client, just from the client meeting. It went well. Guys, look at the view. That is an amazing view, guys. This is State Highway 1. Heading out to south of Auckland. It's amazing. Look at the hills in the background. It's a beautiful day out here down under in Aotearoa. So I am just from meeting with my other client for a prospective, potentially new job. And like I said in my previous video, this job, the client called us and they wanted, they said they wanted to convert their garage into a habitable dwelling. And remember from my last video I said there are implications when it comes to converting a garage into a habitable dwelling. So you need to comply with planning and building consent rules. So, but then it turns out that this client actually wanted to do more than that, so they increased the scope. What they wanted to do is actually convert an existing principal dwelling into two new dwellings. So there is an implication to that. There is an interesting planning implication to that, because what happens then is that you gotta look at, is it a permitted activity? You gotta look at the planning guidance and find out, is converting a principal dwelling into two new dwellings, an existing principal dwelling into two new dwellings, a complying activity? And the question is, yes, it is a permitted activity in some instances, subject to confirmation. Because in the planning rules, there is an activity is either permitted or restricted discretionary or non-compliant. So if it's restricted discretionary or discretionary, then you are required to have a resource consent. If it's permitted, you don't need a resource consent. You go straight to building consent. The reason I encourage my clients, or I advise clients to design, or the reason I do all my projects to compliance, is so that we don't necessarily need to require resource consent, and that is a saving. I try to make sure that I'm designing and doing my project so that I'm saving my clients money. So resource consent can save you anything between $5,000 to $10,000 in fees. That is compliance and consultancy fees. So I try to make sure that my clients, if they have a project, I have done what I can possibly do so that we avoid having to require a resource consent, but we are complying with everything. So we design to compliance most of the time, which is a good thing to do when you're having these renovation projects. So these guys are looking at retirement, and like everybody else, they are looking at opportunities they can do with their house. It's a big house, their kids have grown and gone, and so they want to look at how they can, get some passive income here and there from their rental. So what they're trying to do is to convert the existing house into two new dwellings, and then rent out one and then use the other one. So it's a good project to work on because it has some major challenges there. There are a couple of implications there. And this specifically for my New Zealand audience who may be wanting to do the same thing. Challenges that come with us, I'll just summarize a few, is that number one, you got to look at fire issues. So fire implications, 2 new dwellings sharing a walls. The walls have to be fire rated. There could be some structural issues, like I talked about, code compliance issues to do with insulation in the garage, etc., etc. But mainly it is fire and fireproofing the intertenancy walls, and also soundproofing. So acoustics and fire will be some of the key issues that we'll be looking at in this project. And how to go about making sure that the acoustics are compliant with the code, the fire rating issues are compliant with the code, and then of course some structural. So there are a couple of walls that will need to be demolished, and some of those walls may be load bearing, some others may not be. So the load bearing walls, we gotta look at what is the loading on those walls and what are we replacing with. Is it gonna be like portal frames or whatever? Do I need to get an engineer involved, or is it within the scope of NZS 3604, which I can follow and do it, or is it outside the scope so that I can just engage? I'll have to engage an engineer, but definitely I know we're gonna need a fire report done, and we're gonna need some acoustics consultancy done as well. And then the rest, planning issues, I looked at, and this basically for their project. So we went around and I looked at, 2 new dwellings in an existing compound. How we providing for a main issue with council is being able to provide outdoor living space, and then parking, and then outlook space, all those things. So basically those are the things that you want to think about when you're thinking of converting your a principal dwelling into, say, 2 new dwellings. And I think, I'm quite sure it is a permitted activity, but I'll confirm again from the planning rules, because the client somebody told the client that they cannot do it, it's not permitted. But from memory, when I was reading the planning rules, in some cases it is a permitted activity. So I'll just have to find out which cases are those, and if the client's case fits the bill. So that is what happened with this meeting. It is a potential project that we might be able to get. The client was quite happy with our presentation. And normally, so for the younger, designers who are trying to come up, a question you might want to ask is, how do you stand out on a job that that more than one person is bidding for? Basically, it boils down to, what value are you adding to the client? At the end of the day, every designer, whoever is qualified, they know how to design and how to document a project. But what edge do you have to get the client to accept your proposal and work with you? So I always say, you gotta find a value that you bring to the client. And in this case, what value are we bringing? And you need to be able to point that out to the client, that this is my value if you take me on, and that's what we do with our projects. That's what we do when we are pitching, or when we are pitching to a client, that when you hire us, this is the value that I bring, and at the end of the day, it's gonna save you quite a bit of money when you work with us. And that's what clients are looking for. Clients are looking for value addition, value engineering to their projects. They are looking for accuracy, speed, time, and most of all, they are looking for cost benefit analysis, cost effectiveness. So you don't want to design something that is going to cost an arm and a leg, but at the same time, you want to design something that is going to be functional, it's going to be good, it's going to look good, and cost fairly. Not cheaply, but fairly, you know. And that's what we endeavor to bring to a client. So I would say to young designers, identify the value that you can bring to a client and point that out when you're pitching to them. It's not always you come in cheap. That's not value. It's always how can you enhance the quality of the project and the efficiency with which you can execute the project. And a good example is this client, because after our meeting, they went. The feedback was that we're actually glad that we got you to come, because the other person who came here didn't tell us as much as you did, and we didn't know all this information, and they were very quick and gentle, and they asked for this much. And just to give you an idea, is apparently they had some other designer come in and he had asked for half what we had asked for, you know. So you can imagine our proposal is double what the other person was trying to charging, but you know, we've gotten, the client has opted to come with us, to work with us, you know. And that just tells you that you gotta get your facts right, you gotta do your prep when you're going to meet a client, and you gotta be able to convince them that what you're going to do for them is gonna add value to their lives, you know, to their project, and at the end of the day save them a lot of headache, time, and of course money in terms of executing their project. And that's what we endeavor to do. In my firm, we try to make sure that we are constantly trying to add value to our clients, regardless of the size of the project, whether small, whether big. You're trying to find ways to add value and satisfy the client requirements. So guys, what happens from here on? We're just gonna wait for the client to send us some property files, confirm a couple of things, and then we can hopefully start with the project. There's a couple of contracts to be signed, which I will get to the office and send through to them. And then once that is signed, we can get underway with this project. And as usual, guys, I will be sort of showing you how we start in the subsequent videos. Once the contracts are signed, I'll be showing you how we start a project and go through the whole design motions. And in those videos, for my audiences all over the world, I'll be showing you the things that you need to be looking for, the tips in design and construction that you need to be looking for as a client, etc., and how we do it. So yeah, as always, please guys, subscribe, share, like, so that we get to the magical 1,000 subscribers. And it's always a pleasure for me doing this with you, wherever you're watching from. Until the next video, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, adios. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.